Joining us now is Mariners outfielder Braden Bishop. Braden, great to see you. How are you doing, first and foremost?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm good. It's obviously super weird times. Like, I don't think any time in my life I had not been playing baseball, at this point in the year. So obviously it takes some getting used to, and had to adapt a little bit and, try and get creative and, how to use my time wisely. And, it's just, I'm sure for everybody, it's just such a different experience.
Yeah, there's so much to talk to you in regards to training and stuff like that. But let's go back to March. I mean, we saw you play against your brother. I consider it the highlight of this year's spring training when you guys played the Giants. That was so cool. And then it seemed like after that, it wasn't long after that all this started to happen. Then there was the thought that, hey, players could stay in Arizona and train. Then someone got diagnosed with COVID-19 at the Reds facility. Then Major League Baseball said, okay, everybody's going home. What was all that like? Was it kind of just crazy? Was it everything said to you pretty straightforward by the teams? Just take us through maybe that 48, 72 hours where you're suddenly like, okay, I'm going back to California.
Now, it was a whirlwind. I think for every team, every organization, you're trying to, obviously you knew what was happening around the world. We weren't, blind to that. We knew that there was a possibility that it was going to affect, the rhythm of baseball and, how it was going to play out. But I could have never imagined an enterprise like Major League Baseball.
Right.
Or the NBA or the NFL. I mean, not yet, but being affected like this and having to shut down operations. I mean, I think what was the first? I think it was the 12th of March or the 13th. Yeah, I think it was the 12th. That was like the first meeting we had. Right. That was the day minor leaguers had got sent home without a choice, and then 40-man roster guys had the option to stay and work out, and it was going to be like in groups of 10. So most guys obviously not understanding the severity of what was about to unfold. That's where like, a couple weeks, we'll stay around, stay in shape, be able to get on the field in middle of spring training. So of course we want to stay fresh. We don't want to lose everything we've just built up to. Obviously pitchers, legitimate worry of like, wait, I just, threw 4 innings yesterday.
Right.
How am I supposed to keep that up? And so then I think it was the 13th was when, and we had 2 meetings that day. One in the morning that was like, hey, it's not going to be groups of 10, and we suggest that you go wherever you feel comfortable. So obviously, most guys are going to feel comfortable at their offseason homes. So I think like about half the team decided to go home. Guys were making, the drive from Arizona to Florida or Arizona to Buffalo, so, and then later that afternoon, it was like, hey, within the next 4 or 5 days, this whole thing's going to be shut. So we recommend go where you feel most comfortable, safest. So that's kind of when I kind of had the idea in my head, like, I'm going to go home because, now I got a wife to worry about, and I want to make sure she's safe and feels comfortable. And, it's obviously around family. So we got in the car and left on the morning of the 14th. And then, I think 2 or 3 days after that's when the California governor put the whole stay at home order in effect. So we haven't left since then.
It's bizarre because you guys, like you said, you get to that level, you don't want to lose that. And then all of a sudden, when you look around, Evan White's doing ground balls off the side of his house in Arizona. Yep. Tom Murphy's slamming the medicine ball up in upstate New York just to do anything to, stay on that regimen, because the way it was communicated, I saw was you guys are on basically an off-season workout program. But how hard is that to be in that, knowing that things may change rather quickly, and hey, we got 2 weeks, and then you're going to have to play at a certain level and be ready to roll. I mean, and obviously, who knows, right? Because there's so much uncertainty that we're all dealing with.
Right. Yeah, that's I think that's the hardest part for everybody was, okay, now I got to reevaluate and kind of see what resources do I have? Like, what can I order? You know, guys are going on Amazon, you know, getting dumbbell sets or whatever it is. But I really think it comes down to creativity and, you know, this is why I think it's really important to build up a team of people,
Mm-hmm.
which I've done throughout the past 5 years of physical therapists and manual therapists, strength coaches, trainers, like people who know me, like know my body, know what I need. So like immediately you reach out to them. Luckily, I have a gym in Sacramento here, Hyperthrive Athletics, and they're like some of my closest friends, allies. They do a really, really good job in like the baseball strength sector. So the minute I got here, I was like, hey, let's put together a program with what I have at home. And luckily, invested in a really nice home gym with, I mean, it's a full gym basically, which, you know, in this case, it comes in handy. So I have everything I need. I have like a half cage. It's like, you know, it's basically you chop a cage in half.
Right.
So it's like open on the back side. So I'll hit into that. I have a machine, do flips. But, you know, I think more than anything, this whole situation's given me an opportunity to focus on, you know, my life off the field. So like first and foremost, like the wellness
Mm-hmm.
of myself, you know, so meditating and doing some weird stuff like cold immersion and, you know, reading books. And I mean, I'm sure everybody's doing it, but make your body, mind feel good, and then focus on, you know, being a husband for the first time ever. So that's new. And, you know, just trying to focus on the charity side of stuff, you know,
Mm-hmm.
now that I have a lot of time, you know, having business calls and Zoom meetings with our team in Phoenix, you know, planning out the year. So it's been, I mean, the situation isn't nice, but to step back and, you know, view it from the world from this perspective is different for sure.
So many things that I want to touch on. First and foremost, I'll listen because I want to get to the wellness, the cold immersion, and the charity work. So I think we'll start with the wellness first and foremost. When we were down at spring training, when I was talking to you, you were telling me that you had a spleen injury, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think sometimes we don't quite all realize the significance of the spleen in the entire body. And that was a pretty wicked injury, and it's hard to come back from. And is there a little silver lining here that maybe you didn't get as much time as you needed to heal, that this is maybe giving you what you needed to be able to come back in full swing? Because, I mean, if you can explain it again, I mean, that's a pretty harsh injury.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I always think about how to answer this question, and I feel like I should have answered it like 1,000 times. You
Right.
know, I've done like, podcasts and interviews, and but I mean, honestly, it was like the scariest moments or like string of days and moments, and like when I think back, I'm just like, oh my God, like if anything went different, like.
Right.
I mean, who knows what that situation would have been like. And, you know, I think back, I got hit on a Friday in El Paso. And then Jay Bruce got traded the next morning. So I was on a plane to Seattle. I get to Seattle and, you know, I'm feeling like sick.
Right. Sick to your
Like,
stomach or just your
yeah,
overall
kind
body?
of like overall, just, you know, brain fog. It's
Right.
kind of like full, like bloated. And then on Saturday, I went in the game late because I got there in like the 5th inning,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went in the 7th, and I just felt like weird. Like it just kind of felt like I wasn't there mentally. And then Sunday, I didn't play. Monday, I had actually the guy who I hit with had flown to Seattle, so I drove to the airport to pick him up. we go to the University of Washington to use their cages that morning. And I remember like feeling like I was like getting sick, like the flu. And I was like, this is weird. Like, what a weird time to get the flu. Like, I've never had the flu at this point in the year, which I think was like early July, early June. So we hit, I'm not feeling like it doesn't hurt to swing. Get to the field. I'm starting against the Astros. And then I played, 4 innings. I go out to the field. I catch a fly ball, and like all of a sudden, like my whole left side just like locks up.
Wow.
Yeah, and like my shoulder, like it kind of felt like I had like a spasm or like muscle cramp in my trap. So I was like this, and then it felt like I had a side ache, like where you can't stand up straight. So I was kind of like leaned over. Inning end, I ran in. I knew something was wrong. I think Root Sports had me on the broadcast that night, like in the dugout, and I was like leaning back and forth like this. Like you could tell I was in some agony. And then they took me in. They're trying to figure out what was going on. Like they're pushing on my stomach because I'm like, my stomach hurts, and I'm not like, they're pushing. They're like, you feel anything? I'm like, no, not really. Really uncomfortable, like just like super uncomfortable. So they're like, hey, go home, like see if it subsides. If it doesn't, like let us know. So I go home that night. I couldn't lay down because the blood in my stomach would like move towards my heart, and so it'd be like really uncomfortable and painful, and like the referred pain to my shoulders, like I couldn't deal with it. So early that morning I called the training staff. I was like, hey, I gotta go see somebody, like something's wrong.
Right.
So they sent me to Dr. Calfane, who's our team orthopedic surgeon. And I've had surgery. He's done my surgery on my forearm in 2017 or 18. So we have a relationship, and I know he's pretty mellow-mannered, even when he saw the X-ray on my broken forearm, he's like, hey, it's fine. We'll do surgery. You'll be. And so I go.
Not too alarming, right?
Yeah, it's all right. And then so I lay down on the table. He's like, what's going on? Tell him. Pushes on my stomach, and I don't know if it was like the adrenaline from the game that was not letting me feel them push on my stomach. But when he pushed on it, like I was just like, and like, but like just all the way up to my head, and I saw his eyes, and that's the first moment that I was like, something's seriously wrong, and like now I know it. So he's like, hold on 1 second. He leaves the room, and I mean, he's probably gone for 2 minutes, but it felt like it was 5 days. Like,
wow,
that they were going through my mind, because I didn't know, because he didn't tell me like, hey, it's your spleen. He just like looked like, so I'm thinking worst case, and we wind up, he comes back in, he's like, hey, we need to walk to, I think it was like a block and a half to Harborview's.
Oh gosh, really?
ER. So we walk, and that walk felt like forever. And walking in, we met Dr. Herring. He's a spine specialist, like concussion for the Mariners and at Harborview. So we meet him, and then we meet I want to say he was like the head ICU specialist or something like that.
Okay.
And they're feeling around, and I'm like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I'm not really sure. So we go into the ER, walk in there, and like Harborview's the trauma center, so not many people are walking in the ER.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Herring told them like, hey, you need to get them a CT scan, CAT scan, whatever. And they're like, funny, like he's walking in here, it looks fine. He's like, but let's just cross it off the list. And I'm by myself. Like my wife wasn't up there, my parents weren't up there. The trainers were at the field at the time. Nobody's thinking anything. So I go in, they inject that like ink into
the blue stuff, yeah.
And so I'm laying on the table, get the test done. I go back in my room in the ER. So I'm laying there, and there's probably like 20 minutes between when I take the test and when they come see me. And in that 20 minutes, there's like a gunshot victim that had got wheeled in the room next to me, but it's just a curtain.
Sure. Oh, wow.
So like by myself.
It's been the longest 20 minutes of your life.
Right. And so the gunshot victim, they're screaming, all the the beeping, you know, the ER surgeons are like, you know, gunshot, we need all the codes and all that. And so I'm just like, this is probably one of the lowest moments of my life. Like, I don't know, you know, I was scared.
Sure.
And so then the nurse comes in. She's like, hey, you got to take off like all your jewelry. You got to take off your, you got to like put this gown on. And I was like, what? She's like, oh, you haven't heard? I was like, no, I haven't heard. What's going on? They're like, I should wait for the surgeon. And she was like panicking kind of.
Right. So you go from not just doctors, but surgeons. So then now you're starting to think, oh no, there's going to be surgery?
Yeah, so the ER doctor comes in. She's like, hey, you know, it's your spleen. There's, you know, on a scale of 5, you have a grade 3 laceration. So that means that the spleen has been bleeding, but it hasn't gone outside the capsule. So, like, the blood was still in the capsule. Right. So they showed me on the computer, which I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at, and I'm freaking out. And, you know, so then they're like I want to say it was the radiologists were going to do the procedure. And so they were going in through my femoral artery in my leg, and then they were going to go up with a catheter and hopefully they were going to use like sutures, but then I think they ended up gluing it shut. But I remember texting my wife because I didn't have time to call. I said, I need you to come up here like now.
And she was in California?
Yeah, she was in California working. Okay. And so she's freaking out. She leaves work. You know, she can't get a hold of me because I'm going in for this procedure like immediately. Luckily, my best friend from UW, he's a investment banker in downtown. So my wife calls him and was like, I need you to go in there. And so like as I'm getting wheeled out of the ER room to go back to radiology to get the procedure, he like running down the halls, and I looked to my right and he's like running down in like full suit, and he's like, he caught me like right before I went in, and he's like, it's gonna be okay, like I'm not gonna leave, I'm gonna stay. So I go in, and then like I met the radiologists who were gonna do the procedure, and they were like the first moment I realized like, okay, I'm gonna get through it. Like they were like the smartest guys, you know, I had talked to all day, and they were like, we've done this 1,000 times. You know, try to reassure me. And then got the procedure, and I'm awake during the procedure because they had to since they were going in, they were doing everything by x-ray, so they would like do stuff and then they would take an x-ray, and so I'd have to like move around and like hold my breath, and so I can like feel them. I could feel them like in my stomach, but there's no pain. So it was odd. And then woke up in the ICU and spent, you know, 24 straight hours on my back, like couldn't move or anything. I was hooked up to all these machines, and definitely like a scary, you just have no idea, like you're just trying to like make it to the next breath, and it's just crazy. It was just a whole situation, and like being on my own for so long. Like luckily my wife and dad had gotten there. Went up in the ICU, but just a weird, like scary experience.
So did you get hit by a pitch when you were in El Paso?
Yeah, I got hit. It was Friday night. I got it was a fastball, and I'd faced the guy my whole career, like through every level.
Really?
And the first time that he kind of switched up on me, and I just wasn't ready for it, and it caught me like right on like the front part of my ribs, like stomach side. So
wow, I'm glad you're okay, but that is a wild story. I mean, was there obviously the physical recovery was there, but was there also a little bit of the emotional part, because your season was, for the most part, you probably figured you weren't going to play again the rest of the year because of, I mean, it's a major recovery to go on, but I mean, you had a lot going on in your personal life as well, right? I mean, that was quite the summer.
Yeah, no, it was, I always explained last year as like the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. There wasn't much in between.
Right.
I'm like making a major league debut in Japan, replacing Ichiro. And my brother gets drafted in the first round and has like the craziest year ever. I get married. But then at the same time, I have this major spleen injury, miss an extended period of time. And like, some say like, what if that's my only opportunity? And then, mom passes away, so it's like these like two servants. Like I just wanted this year to be consistent, but we're not off to a great start.
Do you think that time that you had allowed you to put some of your energy into your four-mom foundation, to maybe think about new ways? And when I think a common theme, I think, whether what's going on with COVID-19 with our country right now and sports in general, or just life, is that you can only control what you can control, and you can always control your effort. And so in that moment of uncertainty, that's one thing that you could control. So was it a matter of like, regardless of what happens here, I'm really going to push ahead with this foundation and make things work?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been multiple times in my career when I broke my forearm in 2018. That was like the first time I'd been injured. I'm other than just like a couple games here, a couple games there, never for an extended period of time. I get hit by a pitch there too, not really in my control.
Right.
Shatters my forearm, get surgery, and luckily I only missed a month. Like I'd already had almost like 400 at bats at the time, so like that wasn't huge. But I missed that month. Like in that month, it was August of 2018. That was like the first time I like, okay, I'm gonna like take all my energy, put it into the charity, try and like build it up. And that was like the first time I had thought of Topgolf for our event. I had bought an iPad and just like put everything on there, like all my ideas, who I want to connect with, even if it was like so far-fetched and like I would never, like Maria Shriver and Robin Williams, who passed away. Right. His wife's still a huge advocate. Seth Rogen and his wife, Jay Allen, who's a country singer in Nashville, Terrell Owens, like all these people had Alzheimer's connections. So I made the Topgolf happen, which in turn led me to the team we have now, Personalized Solutions in Phoenix, which is now our four-mom team. But now we have an executive director, Jessica, and her team, that work around the clock trying to, push four-mom forward. But if I didn't get hurt, like, we wouldn't have that team. Like, there probably wouldn't be Topgolf. So,
right.
I look silver lining there. And then, I get hurt, the spleen injury last year. And I kind of similar approach. But this time I wasn't in Arizona. I was in Seattle. So we wound up planning an event in Seattle in July for Alzheimer's Awareness Night. We do, we have a game, our team's up there, like giving out four-mom stuff everywhere. That was on Friday. And then on Saturday night, we had a cornhole tournament in Seattle, donate all the proceeds to Alzheimer's Association Washington. And, I've met probably 5 of those people on my list now. Wow. So, yeah, connected with them. And, we're hoping to get Maria Shriver to speak at our conference in January. That was like another dream of mine that I wrote down on that iPad. It was like, I want to have a conference one day. And now we are doing it in January. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, like obviously you're going to be upset because things kind of get taken away from you and it's not in your control. It's like really easy to fall into, bad habits, kind of feel bad for yourself, which I think is totally okay. Like, I think it's super natural and you can't like hide that. But at the same time, you kind of got to like redirect those thoughts into, trying to make a difference. because I mean, I'm not going to be a baseball player forever. So trying to kind of build a foundation for post baseball.
Yeah, I love the work you do, and I know when you are personally affected by something and your heart goes into a foundation because you know you can help, that's your payback right there. When you see families that are struggling and you're able to help with what you do, it's awesome. Tell me about the conference in January and when is that, when and where, I guess. I mean, I know you said January, but is it going to be in Arizona and a little bit about that?
So we, over the course of the last year, we've connected and tried to help fund a little bit of this research company in San Francisco called Savonics. They've made this assist study where they're doing the U.S. currently. They're trying to build it in Japan because Japan has the second highest Alzheimer's rate.
Really?
So yep. So the whole point is like a 45-minute test, and basically it's kind of like one of those concussion tests. Not as, made to make you fail. Like they're just trying to gather data. So hopefully they can get enough information to hopefully one day kind of identify symptoms or signs of Alzheimer's in people who are 30, or like when does that decline kind of start to happen? I like look back at my mom's situation. When did that start to happen? We don't know. So this program kind of helps, but we're trying to like push the ball forward with that because it's hard to get people. People think that, oh, I'm going to take this test. It's going to tell me if I have it or I don't. That's not what it is. But anyway, we got in touch with them. They're based in San Francisco. So we're going to have it in San Francisco on January 23rd, 2021. It's going to be a full day thing. We're going to have like doctors, researchers, nutritionists, strength and conditioning specialists, movement specialists, meditation, a whole people, caregivers. Then it's a free event to the public because we kind of want to be that resource that my family didn't have. Where you can go ask questions to a doctor who's specifically studying, Alzheimer's and dementia, or other caregivers like, hey, what did you do in this situation? Because when my dad was going through it, he didn't have somebody like that where he could be like, what do I do? Where do I go?
Right.
Where am I supposed to allocate this money that I don't have? So I think it'll be a really good resource for people. We have a pretty strong following now in San Francisco after my brother got drafted by them, and then just with growing up here. And a lot of people knew my mom in this area. And then on the 24th, which is the Sunday, we're going to do 4 miles for mom.
Oh,
so it's
that's
basically
cool.
like, just like a little, 4-mile run or walk or whatever people want to do. We're trying to kind of secure both locations at the moment, but we're getting speakers, locked in, and it'll be a interesting, obviously the first one, you never know what to expect. Sure. But I mean, even if we get 20 people, I'll be happy just that we can provide the resources to people. I mean, we made it free because it's not about money for us,
I know maybe we could agree that I think when you're doing the charity stuff, when you have the first one, it's just a matter of pulling it off. And then after that, everyone gets better and better because you learn things, you refine it, and it goes. So it sounds like an awesome event. When you look around and you see, I know in the clubhouse down in Peoria, I walk in there, there's lots of guys wearing the 4-mom shirt. When Scott Service and everybody has a shirt on before a road trip, I think last year, and or the year before, they take the pictures. And the support that you get from your teammates as well as the Mariners organization, what does that mean to you? Because it only can help, right? I mean, as it goes and because you need attention as an organization to raise funds and then help people.
For sure, yeah. I think, obviously raising awareness is really crucial. And anytime, I use like Instagram as an example, like you're scrolling through and you see a product that's being promoted.
Right.
And it's something to do along the lines, everybody has a mom. Sure. And most people have a deep pride in loving their mom and supporting their mom. And so like you see this product and it applies to you. So you're like, I'll click on it, boom. next thing you know, you're buying it. So it's kind of like similar where it's like, you see Mitch Haniger wearing a 4-Mom shirt on MLB Network, or Shed Long wearing it on MLB Network, and you're watching and you're, wait, that's kind of cool. Like, what is that? You search it, next thing you know, you're like, wait a minute, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, like, I need to connect. Mm-hmm. And like, that's kind of how through sports we've made most of our connections, is, strictly just based off, the awareness we're raising through shirts we're making, or pictures we're posting, or, things we're posting about. But I think viewing charity, we talk about this a lot in our strategy meetings and like coming up with stuff, is we kind of need to view this as a business, and like, right. The more profit we raise, just like in business, like the more successful we're going to be, because we can fund more projects, we can have bigger events, we can reach more people. But I feel like for some reason, I never understood, like, charity's kind of like in this box, mm-hmm. where it's like kind of frowned upon, like, it's not about money, but like it kind of is. And like, right, yeah. I would rather raise more money to give to more people and change, make it easier on more families, than, a business that's not really serving society the right. same. So I think us viewing it like that has helped us kind of push us forward, because we're constantly trying to innovate and, come up with things, whether it's a limited line of clothing that's more designer-ish that people want to wear. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's capital that we can give and pour into this event, or this conference next year. And, because of us innovating like that, there could be somebody who comes to that conference that we reach on a higher level, because we raise that money doing the limited clothing or whatever it is. Right. So, I mean, I give it up to the team that we have now. I mean, they're extremely innovative. So I think that's why we're growing the way we are.
That's awesome, because the wheels constantly have to be turning. You got to think of new ways and different ways to do stuff. I wanted to ask you about the cold immersion. And it's something that I too have taken an interest in, and I've found it very interesting. If I say Win Huff, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm all on him.
Now, how has that helped you? Because I know in Recover, and if you listen to him, the stimuli and how it gets things firing, he thinks it's part of his good health, which is, how do you argue with that? I mean, if there's a way to do certain things. What has that done for you in your recovery, or just overall, and being an athlete? And how much cold immersion do you do? Are you like a cold shower guy? Do you have the cold tubs? Stuff like that.
Obviously you get like super scientific and like right. break down the numbers and all the studies, but I think like I've known people to try it and be like, nah, I don't really feel anything. Like, I hate it. Yeah. So they don't do it. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's plenty of other things you can do that challenge you. But I think for me, like, you reach that point kind of where, and I'm sure, I mean, you've done it, so I'm sure you've got there where it's like, I got to get out. Like, yeah. Like, if you turn the shower cold, and it's like, I got to get out of here. Right. But like, teach yourself to like get over that hump. And breathe, right? Yeah. Control your breathing. And, I've done so much research on breathing and breathing techniques. And, that's how I came across Wim Hof. And just how important it is to slow your breathing down. Like, I read a study yesterday that was talking about animals, and the ones who live the longest breathe the least amount because they're very like slow and controlled breathing. So they're talking about tortoises and how they live forever, right? And they breathe like less than 5 times a minute. And then you look at like very like small animals that have like very like quick, squirrels and small dogs and stuff like that. They breathe very quickly because they don't have the capacity, and so they live shorter. And so it was connecting breathing to go back to cold, to like control your breath in a situation where it makes you want to breathe very fast and at a rapid pace. So I do cold shower in the morning when I wake up, kind of gets me going.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll make breakfast, do our 4 mom meetings, read a little bit, and then I'll work out around like 1-ish, eat, and then after I work out, I'll jump in the pool, which is freezing at this time, and then I'll just stay in there for 20, 25.
Ooh.
Yeah, and get out. But I'll make it fun and like jump in, dive in, just so I'm not just like sitting in there for 25 straight minutes. But it's just, same principle where it's like I'm getting ready to jump in and it's like, don't do it. It's going to suck.
Right.
And then you hit the water and it sucks. And then you realize like, oh, it's not as bad. You get over that hump and, it kind of like pushes me to a zone that just gets me like very locked in. And then I carry that over to the field or hitting or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. I've learned more and more about it. I'm not quite advanced at 20, 25 minutes in a pool, but I do have a friend I've also kind of informed about it. He has started, and he lives out in North Bend. He's got a bunch of property. He's actually putting in some cold tubs. So we'll be doing some of those this summer, those big ones that they have kind of the platform. So we'll talk more about this, I'm sure, hopefully when I see you in person. Big thing came out last night about the possibility that, Major League Baseball wouldn't mind being the ones to get the sports world rolling again, with kind of a bizarre possibility, I think, at face value, of all teams in Arizona playing at 10 ballparks, including Chase Field.
Right.
What was your initial impression of that? And is that doable? And would you be okay not seeing your wife for 4.5 months?
Yeah. Obviously, when I read it, the first thing I thought was like first draft, right. I think that's not how you're going to see it happen. I think there was some good ideas and some probably extreme ones, because I'm sure when you're sitting down and brainstorming, you're like, oh, wait, that's a good idea. Well, there's so much like red tape that you got to get through to like make that happen. And so I think they put all that. I've talked to a couple guys, especially guys with kids, like that's a big worry. You don't want to be away from, your kids for 4.5 months, your wife for 4.5 months. Mm-hmm. And then you think about the guys who are like going to have kids, like in this time span. It's like, so what do? They sit for 2 weeks to get quarantined to make sure they're healthy, then go see their baby born, and then have to quarantine another 2 weeks. And then they miss like over a month. This is stuff that, has to be talked about on a much deeper level. But super interesting. I read through it this morning. But yeah, I think more than ever, you really have to focus on the health and well-being of players and stadium workers and coaches. Mm-hmm. And, that has to be the priority. It has to be. And if it's just not safe, like, is it worth it?
Right.
Right. And I don't know, because I'm not a doctor,
right.
Medical professional. So mine is just opinion.
Do you think it's indicative, though, of how bad people just want to play? And baseball is kind of, I know after 9/11 especially, it kind of set the tone with the New York games when they came out with the FDNY hats and stuff like that. But like you said, it's got to be at the right time. But how eager are guys like yourself just to get back on the field and do what you do best?
Yeah. No, definitely. Like I said, this is like the first time ever at this time of the year I'm not, playing baseball like in that routine, taking BP, in a clubhouse. But I think with anything, it's really important to realize that no situation is really alike. Mm-hmm. I think, it's a weird example, but you look at like sports teams that had been really good at one point, and then times, there's an evolution of 10, 12, 15 years, and then it's like that team is still trying to become the team of 15 years past, but like there's such an evolution, like it's not the same situation.
Right.
So like I totally understand like sports brings people together, but like these times are so different, and like I feel like to compare it, like it might not be the same. I don't know, like I said, but the way I view it and like the things I've been through in my life with stuff off the field and like the perspective it's given me is like life is super fragile. like super fragile. And like to view the disease as, you know, something that we can just like play through. Like, I don't know if that's the smartest. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but like caring about people and, you know, guys who are like, what if somebody gets sick and like he misses his baby's birth or something like that? You know, like that's stuff that I hope they take into account, because like we do all have lives off the field, and we got wives and kids that are kind of sitting idly by too. But you know, at the end of the day, we're all competitors, and like without competition, we're all kind of hungry. And I think you see guys like probably playing too many video games to try and fill that void. But I mean, it's just super intricate situation though. Like, you know, everybody has an opinion, but you know, who's right? You know, probably not many of us.
It really is. I mean, it is totally uncertain times, like no one has experienced before. So it's totally bizarre, and it is. I know up here they canceled high school spring season. There's seniors that will have never played their senior year. I mean, obviously you being a former Husky, they were 12 games in, and then, you know, and then they got the whole deal with eligibility. You can come back for another year if you want, and then you got freshmen coming in, and then how do you say no to those guys? I mean, I know they can expand rosters, but a college roster with 50 guys? I mean, it's not like they have an A team and a B team, right? So there's so many crazy things going on now that need to be just, I guess, analyzed and talked about again, you know?
Absolutely.
It's nuts. Well, Braden, thanks a lot, man, for your time. Totally appreciate it. I loved all the stories, and I love that the foundation is doing so well. I know you've poured your heart and soul into it, and anything I can do to help you further that along, of course, always let us know.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. This is
right.
great.
Thanks, buddy.